Just 2 days before her death, a camera captured a gaunt and hollow-eyed Sophie Leonette sitting in front of a fireplace. The young au pair had been starved and tortured by her London host family for weeks. In her final photo, she appears frail and aged, though she was only 21 years old. Shortly after this photo was taken, her employers brutally beat her to death and then attempted to dispose of her body on the family grill. Why did they destroy this once vibrant girl so completely? The answer to that question is perhaps the most bizarre part of this tragic story. Sophie Leonette was born on January 7, 1996, in a small rural town in eastern France, home to just over 60,000 people. Her parents, Catherine and Patrick Leonette, went their separate ways during her childhood. After the separation, Catherine remarried, yet both she and Patrick remained in the same town, ensuring Sophie maintained a close relationship with each of them. Known for her kindness and altruism, Sophie loved animals and children, consistently striving to help others. Her interests included outdoor activities like horse riding and ice skating. She was also passionate about music and films and engaged in creating independent documentaries focused on social issues such as climate change and animal rights. Described by friends and family as shy and introverted since her youth, her love for children inspired her to pursue a childcare course after high school. However, job opportunities in her field were scarce in her hometown. At 19, encouraged by a cousin, she considered becoming an au pair to blend cultural and linguistic exchange with childcare, while exploring the world and improving her English. In 2015, Sophie connected with Sabrina Quaider and Wissem Medouni, a French couple living in the affluent Southfield area on Wimbledon Park Road in London, who were seeking a French-speaking au pair for their 2 children. She applied, was swiftly hired, and by January 2016, just after her 20th birthday, she left her small town for London, unaware of the impending terror she would face. In London, she met her employers, Sabrina, born in 1983, and Wissem, born in 1978. The couple, of Algerian descent, met in France when Sabrina was about 18, working at a fair selling crepes. Wissem, 5 years her senior, fell for her at first sight. Though initially uninterested, Sabrina faced relentless pursuit from Wissem, who was captivated by her exotic beauty and charismatic presence. Despite her volatile and manipulative nature, they embarked on a tumultuous and toxic relationship that lasted 17 years. In 2004, at 22, Sabrina moved to London seeking a better future, initially working as an au pair with aspirations to enter the fashion industry. Wissem followed her to London. Having studied economics at the University of Paris, he quickly secured a job with the London branch of a French bank. At this point, the couple was not married. Their relationship was tumultuous, marked by frequent breakups and reconciliations, with Sabrina firmly in control. While together, Sabrina was often unfaithful, leaving Wissem for other men but always returning, and he would take her back without question. Around 2008, Sabrina had her first child, though details about the child, including the father's identity, the exact age, and the name, remain unclear. During her time in London, Sabrina worked various jobs while trying to break into the fashion and makeup industry. Her big break came in 2011 when she was involved in a pyramid sales scheme for a telecommunications company and met Mark Walton at a bank in Notting Hill. Mark, a former member of the Irish boy band Boyzone, fell deeply in love with Sabrina and they began dating. This relationship opened doors for Sabrina in the celebrity world, leading to work as a makeup artist for celebrities. She later expanded into designing and songwriting. Sabrina and Mark's relationship lasted 2 years, during which she allegedly had a second child in the United States, supposedly with Mark. Mark later described Sabrina as pathologically jealous, accusing him of infidelity with male sex workers and even installing hidden cameras to spy on him. After her time with Mark, Sabrina returned to London and resumed her relationship with Ouissem, who welcomed her back with open arms. With Ouissem working at the bank and Sabrina's success as a makeup artist and designer, the couple enjoyed a comfortable and even luxurious lifestyle in an affluent London neighborhood. However, beneath the surface, their relationship remained toxic. Though they were married under a traditional Muslim ceremony, Sabrina openly ridiculed their marriage, referring to Ouissem as a relative or friend while continuing to date other men. Their life together was filled with loud arguments, with Sabrina never shy about expressing her dissatisfaction. Despite this, they never parted ways, perpetuating their cycle of conflict. Neighbors viewed Sabrina and Ouissem as antisocial and strange. Sabrina always appeared glamorous and well-dressed, but the couple was unfriendly and inconsiderate, often leaving trash outside for days, blocking neighbors' driveways with their cars and failing to pay rent on time. Sabrina remained fixated on her ex, Mark, accusing him of bizarre and false actions such as sexually abusing a non-existent cat, using black magic against her, and hiring a helicopter to spy on her. The police received over 30 reports from Sabrina about Mark, all of which were unfounded. Her obsession escalated to the point where she received a police warning for creating a fake social media profile to harass Mark, primarily accusing him of being a child abuser. It later emerged that Sabrina suffered from depression and borderline personality disorder, causing her to experience severe mood swings, delusions, and paranoia. Although Ouissem did not suffer from any psychological disorders, Sabrina managed to convince him that her accusations were true. Into this chaotic and unstable environment stepped the young and naive Sophie, in search of a dream that would soon turn into a nightmare. Initially, Sophie's experience as an au pair was pleasant and positive. The children adored her and were easy to care for. She earned €50 a week and befriended other nannies in the area. In phone calls with her mother, Sophie seemed happy and content with how things were going. She got along well with Sabrina, often chatting over tea at the kitchen table. Sabrina, who loved doing hair and makeup, even gave Sophie a makeover. However, this camaraderie and apparent tranquility did not last long. Gradually, Sabrina's violent and abusive side began to emerge. The treatment of Sophie turned abusive, starting with shouting and insults over simple mistakes like tripping, breaking a glass, or not having meals ready on time. This escalated to physical attacks, including slaps and hair pulling as punishment, always explosive and unpredictable. Sophie, being shy and passive, did not know how to react to the abuse. She had never faced such a situation before, and aggression was not in her nature. She kept silent, cried in her room, and tried to comply, but there was no way to satisfy Sabrina, who had already marked her as a victim of her violent delusions. The abuse intensified, and soon Sophie was denied food, leading to rapid weight loss. With physical weakness came mental exhaustion. On top of everything, the couple confiscated her passport and stopped paying her. Sophie found herself held against her will in a house where she was subjected to relentless torment. Despite everything, Sophie tried to seek help in her own way. On one occasion, she told the owner of a fast food restaurant that she was being beaten, but received no response. She also tried to go to the house of some family acquaintances, but Sabrina followed her and, after causing a scene, forced her to return. The owner of a fish and chips restaurant in the area recalled seeing Sophie in his establishment a couple of times, alone and visibly distressed. When he asked her what was wrong, she said that her mother was sick. Since Sophie was very shy and had limited English skills, she rarely spoke with people she didn't know well. She had written and talked to her family about possibly returning home earlier than planned, and her parents were aware of the household tensions, but they had no idea how serious the situation was. Feeling trapped with no one to turn to, Sophie was paralyzed by fear and manipulated by the couple to the point where she felt incapable of escaping. This ordeal lasted for about a year, with the abuse intensifying over time. By April 2017, approximately 15 months into her job, her mother Catherine noticed during a phone call that Sophie seemed unhappy and weary, expressing a desire to come home. On August 8th, Sophie called her family again, crying and sounding confused. She told her mother she needed £40 for a ticket. Sophie received the money and bought a return ticket for September 18, 2017. Unfortunately, she would never get to use it. Sabrina's paranoid delusions and obsession with Mark intertwined with the abuse towards Sophie. She began to believe that Sophie and Mark were plotting against her, accusing the nanny of sleeping with him and being a child abuser. She also claimed Sophie was spying for Mark, planning to help him enter their home to drug and sexually assault her, Wissem, and the children. These accusations were baseless, but Sabrina convinced Wissem they were true. Initially, Wissem would look the other way when Sabrina yelled at or hit Sophie, but he eventually started actively participating in the abuse. Sabrina told Sophie she could only leave if she admitted to working for Mark, but Sophie refused to acknowledge this. In an attempt to extract a confession, they subjected her to hours of inhumane treatment and interrogation. They dunked her in the bathtub, beat her with cables, and threatened her with sexual assault. These sessions were recorded on their cell phones, resulting in 8 hours of footage. The brutal duo finally broke Sophie, who confessed to an affair with Mark, a man she had never met and who had been living in Los Angeles since 2015. Sophie believed that telling Sabrina what she wanted to hear would secure her release, but it did not. In fact, her nightmare intensified. On September 19, 2017, after nearly 2 years of working for the couple, 21-year-old Sophie was savagely beaten in the bathroom, resulting in her death. The following afternoon, on Wednesday the 20th, Wissem lit a bonfire to burn Sophie's body, adding chicken and meat to mask the smell. However, neighbors called the British emergency number due to the thick smoke and strong odor emanating from the garden. Authorities arrived at the residence around 6:20 p.m. By then, the bonfire had been burning for approximately 3 hours. One of the first firefighters on the scene quickly sensed something was amiss. As he extinguished the flames, he noticed what appeared to be human remains, including what looked like a nose, along with some clothes and jewelry. When he questioned Wissem about the fire, the man claimed he was burning a sheep carcass he had bought, explaining that the remains were from the animal. The firefighter observed that Wissem seemed uncomfortable and resigned when responding. Police officers at the scene recovered the charred remains and a pair of melted glasses. Just 2 days later, Sabrina and Ouissem were arrested on suspicion of murder. On September 26th, they appeared before the criminal court. At this time, Sophie's remains had not been officially identified, although the press had already reported her as the victim of the horrific crime. Sabrina cried throughout the hearing and interrupted to declare her innocence. Although both admitted to attempting to dispose of the body, neither took responsibility for Sophie's death and blamed each other. In his initial statement, Ouissem claimed Sophie died accidentally during an interrogation in the bathroom. However, he later recanted, saying he made that statement to protect Sabrina. His revised account stated that Sabrina woke him, saying Sophie was not breathing, and he found her lifeless in the bathroom. Sabrina's defense acknowledged she had hit Sophie on several occasions but maintained that the girl died in her sleep. After hearing both sides, the judge set the trial date for March 19, 2018. Sabrina and Ouissem were remanded to prison while the police continued their investigation. No bail was requested. According to the pathologist involved in the investigation, the body was so severely burned that determining the victim's sex and age was initially impossible. On October 3rd, 2 weeks after the incident, DNA tests confirmed the remains were those of Sophie. The autopsy revealed that at the time of her death, she had a broken jaw, a fractured sternum, and 5 broken ribs, injuries sustained within the last 36 hours of her life. Due to the extensive burns, the exact cause of death could not be determined. However, it was established that she might have died from a head injury, neck constriction, or drowning. The trial began on March 19, 2018. Sophie's parents traveled to London with financial support from the French government to attend the hearings in person. The prosecutor Richard Horwell argued before the jury that the couple had killed Sophie out of vengeance, aiming to punish a man the young Frenchwoman had never met. He described Sabrina's accusations against Sophie as pure, delusional fantasy and characterized Ouissem as a weak, submissive, and docile man. Another prosecutor added that while only Sabrina and Ouissem knew exactly how they killed Sophie, it was proven that she died as a result of sustained violence, not an accident. The forensic psychologist testified that Sophie had been horrifically interrogated for at least 12 days, as evidenced by videos found on the couple's cell phones. She also stated that Sabrina admitted to having sex near the body of her victim, claiming Ouissem forced her, which demonstrated severe dissociation and a lack of remorse. The jury was shown several videos of the interrogations. In one, dated September 11th, 9 days before the crime, Sabrina could be heard yelling at the victim, accusing her of destroying everything. She also prayed aloud, asking God not to make her touch Sophie, saying she didn't want to dirty her hands. Another recording from September 18th, 2017, shortly before Sophie's death, showed her making a confession. The footage revealed her emaciated and broken state, and the prosecution argued that this confession was not given voluntarily. Richard Horwell described the actions of the accused as a campaign of intimidation, martyrdom, and violence that completely destroyed young Sophie. He stated that the couple's plan was to dispose of the body, claim the nanny had returned to France, and deny any involvement in her disappearance. Sabrina was identified as the mastermind behind the plot due to her obsessive fixation on Mark. Ouissem, initially a follower, became a willing accomplice in the crime. Mark, contacted by the London police on September 21st, flew from Los Angeles to testify against Sabrina. During his testimony, he explained that he and Sabrina had been in a relationship for 2 years. He acknowledged having been deeply in love but described Sabrina as extremely volatile and unpredictable. Mark detailed how she would go into fits of rage, causing scenes regardless of where they were. During the hearings, it was revealed that Sabrina had employed nannies before, but she always fired them, suspecting them of theft and flirting with him. The musician also confirmed that the first time he heard of Sophie was when the London police contacted him after the crime. Regarding the defense, Sabrina's lawyers leveraged Ouissem's initial statement to attack him and defend Sabrina. She reminded the court that Ouissem had claimed he hit Sophie in the face, causing her head to strike the tiles, rendering her unconscious and slipping under the water. Sabrina's lawyer added that when Ouissem realized Sophie was unresponsive, he dragged her out and tried to revive her, but failed. During the sentencing hearing, a letter of apology from Sabrina to Sophie and her family was read. In the letter, Sabrina expressed that she and Sophie had shared many good times and sorrows together until things went tragically wrong. She stated that she thought about Sophie every day and was saddened and shocked by her absence from the world. Sabrina described the situation as a horrible nightmare from which she wished to awaken, living each day with sadness and regret over that dreadful night. She also mentioned living without hope and being deeply disappointed in herself, concluding with a wish for Sophie to rest in peace with God. In an attempt to gain leniency for his client, Sabrina's lawyer argued that her actions were driven by her delusions and personality disorders, which left her with an irrational and overwhelming fear that Sophie was conspiring against her and her family with Mark. While the judge acknowledged that the couple suffered from a shared psychosis and that Sabrina, in particular, had severe delusions and was the driving force, this did not excuse the atrocious treatment and violent death of Sophie. The prosecution successfully convinced the jury of Sabrina and Ouissem's guilt. On May 24, 2018, after a 2-month trial and 6 days of deliberation, the couple was found guilty of the murder of Sophie Lyonnais. Sabrina and Ouissem were sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 30 years. Announcing his decision, the judge stated that both had subjected Sophie to unbearable suffering, making her believe she would drown unless she gave them the information they sought. The judge emphasized that Sabrina's motive was to make Sophie and Mark suffer without any justification. He was convinced that the accused knew their method of interrogation was unacceptable, that it was illegal to assault her, and that Sophie was in a deplorable state at the time of her death. Upon hearing the verdict, Sabrina broke down in tears while Ouissem sat motionless, staring at his lap. Sophie's parents also addressed the murderers. Catherine stated that no God would forgive them for what they had done, and Patrick declared that they had not only taken his daughter's life, but had also stolen his own. On June 2, 2018, nearly 9 months after her death, Sophie's body was repatriated to her homeland. Her remains were brought to a funeral chapel for a private gathering of her family before the service. A few days later, on June 6th, her funeral was held at the Saint Denis Cathedral, attended by over 150 people. Patrick, her father, said that Sophie was very loving, fond of children and animals. He was heartbroken to know that she suffered abuse until the end of her life. Her aunt described her as a sweet and gentle girl who loved everyone and cherished making people happy. Approximately 16 days after the verdict against those responsible for Sophie's death, Ouissem's defense appealed, citing a supposed note from the jury members to the judge during their deliberations. According to the lawyer, the note expressed uncertainty about Ouissem's intentions during the events leading to Sophie's death between September 18th and 21, 2017. They also argued that the minimum sentence was too long. Sabrina's lawyer made a similar appeal. However, both appeals were rejected in January 2019. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.